Good evening, everyone. It's Necro Thursday. I'm here with Mike Scandato, and we're presenting to you this week's episode of the Necromaniacs Horror Podcast. How's it going, Mike?
It is going well. What's up, everybody? As Mr. Hill just said, you're listening to Necromaniacs Podcast, the greatest horror podcast in the world. I am well. Before we started rolling, I told you last night I went to go see our friends in Sick of It All play with Life of Agony at the Knockdown Center in Queens. You ever been to that venue?
No, I haven't.
It's really big. Like, it holds like 3,000 people. And I'm not sure why they had this show there, honestly. It probably would have fared better at like Irving or, somewhere like that, or even maybe the Monarch, because now the Monarch, like, they redid it a bit and it holds more people. But it was still a fun show. And I got to see the band Pain of Truth, good new hardcore band from Long Island, and had a good time on a Sunday night. Did you do anything this weekend?
I was out of town this past weekend. I went up to the Upper Hudson Valley for a weekend away with my girlfriend. It was a really, really good time.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Not too far from your origin place, no? Hudson Valley?
Yeah. Well, Carmel, New York, where I grew up, is technically part of the Hudson Valley. And the area that we were in, it was like 20 minutes from where my folks live, and we stopped in to see them on Sunday and, that kind of thing.
Very cool. We were also chatting before we got rolling about all the freaking shows coming up and stuff. Like, a lot of good metal coming through between now and the end of the year across the USA, which is always a good thing. Tombs doing anything before the year is out, Mr. Hill?
Yeah, there's some stuff that's about to be announced. Nothing too crazy, but if you live in the Northeast, you'll be able to catch us in October. I can't announce the shows just yet. That's up to the other guys that are headlining this operation. But
gotcha.
If you're in Brooklyn, Providence, Rhode Island, Philly area, and Long Island, we're actually playing a show out on Long Island too around Halloween. So keep your eyes and ears open. In the next couple weeks, there'll be some announcements.
Excellent. Very cool. And as I've said before, my old band Confusion has a new discography out called Storm the Walls, 1990-1994. You can get it anywhere, Apple, Spotify. You can get the vinyl or the CD. And we are playing our first show in 16 years on Saturday, September 30th at the Brooklyn Monarch with Terror and Killing Time and a whole mess of bands. It should be a lot of fun. And those are the musical plugs, Mr. Hill.
That's awesome. September 30th, you're saying?
Yes, Saturday, September 30th. Yep.
Okay.
Cool. But while we're in the spirit of plugs, why not plug our fellow horsemen of the old apocalypse?
Yeah, let's run it down. So starting the week off, we have Brandon Legion with Horror Wolf 666. Who do we have on Tuesday, Mike?
On Tuesday, we have the greatest metal podcast of all time, Jackie Smith's own Into the Necrosphere. On Wednesday, ladies and gentlemen, we have the one that started it all, Mr. Hill's own Everything Went Black podcast. On Thursday, you're listening to it right now. Why, it's the Necromaniacs Horror Podcast. On Friday, what do we got, Mr. Hill?
Friday is actually, I forgot the name of the new show. They changed the name from Break the Apocalypse.
Yes, they changed the damn name. God damn it. But they are called Spitball Media. The artist formerly known as Break the Apocalypse is now Spitball Media. Please check it out. If you like your entertainment news, movie news, things of that nature. Again, that name is Spitball Media. On Saturday, take a break, go out, get a drink, hang out with your friends, your loved ones, your family. But on Sunday, make sure you come back for Carl Hikara's own Soul Knox podcast.
And I'd also like to add, we got one more newcomer to the fold. Of course, we're talking about Iblis Manifestations, brought to you by Cheyenne of the Mighty Trivax. And definitely check that out. It's a very good show. He kind of has a looser schedule when he releases stuff, so just keep your eyes and ears open.
Cool. You know, well, not a horseman of the apocalypse. Every day, one of the guys who owns Hell's Headbangers, the excellent metal distro, this guy Justin Horval, does a YouTube channel, and it is really amusing, Mike Hill. You should check it out.
All right.
Yes, you just put in Justin Horval on YouTube, and but Hell's Headbangers is owned by 3 brothers, okay, and he's one of the brothers, and he's a very opinionated man when it comes to all things death metal, black metal, etc. And people send him questions, and I just get quite a kick out of this guy. He has interviews too. He had Malignancy on once. He had Dying Fetus on. He had Paul Ledney of Profanatica on recently. He had Corpse Grinder on. The singer from Toxic Holocaust, I forget his name. He was on.
Joel Grind.
Joel Grind. He had Athanar from Midnight. But like every day there's new content, and it's quite a hoot. So check it out on YouTube. I think you'd also, if you search Hell's Headbangers, you could find it as well.
I'll definitely check it out.
Yes. Aside from that, on the viewing front, I am not nearly. I just started season 5 of What We Do in the Shadows. I was very behind, Mike.
Oh man, I'm way behind on it.
So fucking funny. It's one of my favorite things to just put on at night before I go to bed. It used to be Barry. I finished Barry on HBO, which was fucking excellent. Ended kind of weird, gotta say, but I still loved it. Now I'm on, season 5, episode 1 of What We Do in the Shadows, and it's just, a whole hell of a lot of horror fun.
I got to catch up on that. It's I really dug the first 3 seasons rather, and I'm just fucking behind, man.
Yeah. It's definitely a good thing to put for a long time. I watch any kind of crazy ass horror before bed,
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes that's not the best thing for me sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah. But sometimes it is what it is. Like if I have something to watch for the show, or it's a movie I was just dying to watch, it just sometimes happens that it'll be the last thing I watch before bed. But now lately I'm trying to change that up to watch things that are a little more lighter. I don't know why, but I feel like it helps me. For the next day, if that makes any sense at all.
Well, I mean, What We Do in the Shadows is still, even though it's a comedy, it still is a kind of a dark subject matter.
Yeah, exactly. So it's almost like a little bit of both worlds,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a lot of fun. I'm sure a lot of our listeners watch the show, or at least know exactly what we're talking about. But also, if you've never seen the movie it's based on, that is a mandatory horror comedy, in my opinion. Hilarious.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
I saw that in the theater. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I checked out 2 recommendations from our fellow horsemen. One of them is a movie called Subject, which Brandon Legion hipped me to on our thread, our Facebook messaging thread that we all check out on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
And it's currently on Screenbox, which I about a week ago I re-upped that just to check out some other stuff. Very good, really heavy, low budget, kind of definitely horror, but with a little bit of a psychological kind of bent to it. And it's one of those low budget films. There's only a couple people in the cast, but it's about, you can tell it's about something really personal. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Yeah. So
it's
if you guys,
American flick?
It's American. Yeah. And so if you guys, anyone out there who has Screenbox, check out Subject. And you can thank Brandon Legion at Horror
Yeah.
Wolf for telling us about it. And then there's a docuseries, an old docuseries called Hellier, which
Hmm.
Carl Hikara recommended to me. And so far I've only seen the first episode called The Midnight Children. And it's just, it's like one of these docuseries about people who investigate supernatural phenomena, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And but this one particularly kind of tied into the 22-aught Swift short story that Carl and I did for an upcoming episode of Darkness Weaves over at Everything Went Black, because the Midnight Children and the kind of underground monster that was in common theme in the story and the Hellier episode. Really cool. It's on YouTube. You can watch it. If you're into that kind of thing, which I very much am, definitely check it out.
They sound cool.
Yeah.
I don't have Screenbox, and I don't know if I'm going to plunk down for it, but I mean, perhaps I could see it in some other methods at some point.
Yeah, it'll probably end up on everything else eventually. But Hellier, you can watch that on YouTube.
Oh, I forgot to mention this last podcast, and I wanted to. Although I've had the Blu-ray for quite some time from Grindhouse, Death Game has made its way onto Shudder. So I
Nice.
watched Death Game finally, yes. And I think we should perhaps cover it because we did, in fact, cover Knock Knock, of which it was based on. And I have to say, I really did enjoy watching Death Game, the 70s oddball horror film. Um, I say oddball because it was kind of languished in obscurity for decades until being kind of rescued by Grindhouse, and it was actually already rescued by Grindhouse, and then Knock Knock came out. It just was like in gestation, as they say, the Blu-ray for this thing. But it was a really cool movie. Death Game. Check it out, kids.
No, definitely, man. Sounds good.
Yeah.
So of course we got the Necrophone, and if you want to call us, and we've been getting a lot of calls lately, which is good. The
Mm.
number is 908-913-0782. 908-913-0782. And leave us a voicemail, and we play it, and you can say whatever you want. So to kick things off, we got Dave Razor Eater, return caller and listener.
Hey, what's up, Necromaniacs? It's your pal Dave Berardi over at the Razor Eater Metal page on Instagram. Haven't called in a while. Just wanted to recommend some stuff that I've checked out over the last little while that you guys may or may not have seen. Trying to think of what I should talk about first, because there's been some good stuff and some older stuff that I've checked out as per recommendations from you guys. Actually, my wife and I just finished the first season of True Detective, finally, and I regret not checking that out once it first came out, because that was brilliant. So we're on to season 2. I don't have much hopes of it being any better than season 1, but I know the show's great, so looking forward to the rest of it. As far as films go, we checked out the new one called God is a Bullet. It's got Jamie Foxx in it. That main girl from It Follows is in it as well. That was a great flick. Pretty brutal, but well done. It was pretty gripping, I think, throughout. So you guys need to check that out. Borders on horror, but I would say it's more of a dramatic, you could say thriller, I guess. Also ended up checking out The Addiction, directed by Abel Ferrara. That's got to be like one of the most underrated vampire films, like, of all time. I think it definitely needs to get talked about more. The way it's shot, the acting, the dialogue in it, I think is just fucking brilliant. So, if anybody out there hasn't checked out The Addiction, you definitely need to check that out. There's a full version up on YouTube of it. that's not edited, and there's another version of it up on YouTube that is edited. I guess they cut out the blood and stuff, which, cutting out blood from a vampire movie is like cutting out the zombies in a zombie movie. It doesn't make any sense to me. And yeah, other than that, there's not much else that I've checked out. We did watch The Girl Next Door on Netflix as well. And you know what? Talk about a movie that doesn't really need to show much brutality to just make you feel uncomfortable. That one is, that one's not for the faint of heart, if anybody checks that out. But other than that, looking forward to more of the episodes of what you guys are going to do. I always love what you guys are doing, and looking forward to...
Now, Dave was saying that he just checked out True Detective Season 1 for the first time, and
that must be something, huh? I mean, I'll never feel that feeling again, but watching that for the first time when it aired was fucking something, huh?
Yeah, and I kind of admire him for being able to binge it, like the first time around when we all were watching it 10 years ago or whenever was you had to wait week to week, so it was very cool to be able to, rifle through the entire series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I fucking loved Season 1. I liked Season 2, like Season 3. Looking forward to seeing what is next. Bar is pretty high. We will see, what they pull out. I mean, Jodie Foster's fucking awesome. I mean, I feel like quality has been, connected to every season. So I expect no dip in quality,
The only thing I have to say is that Nick Pizzolatto is not involved whatsoever in the new season of True Detective. So we'll see,
Okay, maybe I'll walk that back. No, that's not good. That's not good. However, it could still be very good.
I have actually heard of God as a Bullet. I think, it's on Netflix. The Addiction, of course, the fantastic Abel Ferrara movie is one of our favorites. And
yes.
The Girl Next Door, not my thing, but I give it props.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it more than you, even though like is a strange word in that movie. The book is great. I am a huge fan of Jack Ketchum. So, rest in peace, Mr. Ketchum. Yeah, his other books are fucking killer too, by the way. If you've only read Girl Next Door, literally pick a random book from him and you'll dig it. Yeah, but that is an acquired taste. Girl Next Door is definitely acquired taste, but a good horror movie nonetheless, in my opinion.
Next up, we have Andre from Ontario.
Salut les gars, or in French would be, hey guys. I'm Andre from Winchester, Ontario. I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller, like many others. Love all you guys from the podcasting apocalypse, and a fan of all your bands as well, that's for sure. Too many to name, right? All you guys get me through each and every day, and like throughout each week, it's a blessing. Listen to podcasts, all your podcasts every time it comes out. It's amazing. So enough of the ass kissing. I have a suggestion for a film for you guys to cover. Maybe not horror, but it's something that I enjoyed pretty much when it came out. It's The Machinist from Brad Anderson of Session 9 fame. It's with Christian Bale and also stars Jennifer Jason Leigh. But yeah, has a small part by fellow Canadian actor Michael Ironside of Scanners. Was it Starship Troopers? Yeah, quite a few other movies. But he was also in like another obscure Canadian horror thriller. It's Visiting Hours. I don't know if you guys have seen that too. It's from 1982. Not too bad. So yeah, The Machinist, well, Christian Bale. It's going full on method acting with weight loss and all that shit. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty intense. Like that was like, I think it was just before Batman Begins, if I remember correctly. He lost all that weight and gained it all for Batman, I think. Anyway, yeah, so it's quite a few what the fuck moments in this movie. It's fucking still keeps me guessing to this day. Pretty cool. It's not really horror, right? But it's, well, still pretty fucked up anyways, overall. Maybe more of a thriller, actually. So maybe something you guys can cover. Well, anyways, that's it for now. I don't know what else to say. I'm like on the spot. I will try to find some more recommendations for you guys. Maybe more horror oriented, but I know you guys don't always do full on horror, which is cool. I love it. Don't want to take up too much of your time. So cheers, guys. À la prochaine. Till next time. All right. Okay, bye.
Comment ça va, mon ami? Good to hear from you.
Oh, Mike speaking French. Goodness gracious.
You know, I agree that The Machinist is something that we should cover at some point because we're into you know, the horror adjacent stuff. You know,
Mm-hmm.
have you've seen that, right?
What do you call it? Yeah, like I'm definitely down for that. I just want to say cheers to this man for being a long time listener and first time caller. I liked hearing that, Mike.
Yeah, me too, man. Thanks, and you know, once again, and thanks everyone for listening, man. We really appreciate it. This has been like the long game for us. You know, we just keep on doing it. You know, and appreciate everyone, and thanks everyone for calling in. You know, it's really cool to hear from people like, you know, in this way.
Yeah, it's a labor of love. We do this because we love it, and next year we're hitting the Big Ten, and we'll do something cool. Maybe we'll trot out a new 10th anniversary T-shirt, Michael.
That's actually a pretty solid idea, man.
Yes, you know? It's February, I believe. February of 2024.
I'll get on that for sure.
Fuck yeah. But or we could have like a Jeff quote on the back about how terrible something was. I think that's kind of fun to have too, you know.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool.
Like I give this a 1 or something like that. I give this a 1 on the back. But cheers to you, Jeff, for always making me laugh. Tonight, folks, we're going back to Mike's favorite decade for horror, the 1970s. We've spent a lot of time in 2023 in the 1970s, haven't we, Michael?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that possibly will have to do with the unfortunate lack of quality of 2023 films in the horror genre.
Yeah. In our group text with our quality control manager, Rennie, we were discussing just that. And I'm trying to remember if I got an answer as to if there was anything, say, among, you know, the new Shudder crop that, you know what, it's actually really good. It really needs to be seen. And I'm trying to remember what the consensus was for that, because we had like 3 stinkers in a row or 4 stinkers in a row, you know?
Yeah, I can't. I think there's like 1 maybe, you know.
There's got to be, and I'm going to find it. Right.
Yeah. And the one that I'm thinking of is controversial because it's not a movie that I can recommend, yet it is like probably one of my favorite movies of the year.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. All right. Look, been a weird year, and there was some great movies of the 70s and 80s that either we have not covered or we have not seen and not covered, right? So why not give some of this fucking awesome content, to call it, a shine, right? I mean, just because it's old certainly doesn't mean it's not worth covering.
Well, the 70s in general is one of the greatest, you know, decades of film, just filmmaking.
Yeah.
You know, some of the best films in history came out in the 70s, in my opinion.
No, yeah, totally. But tonight, folks, we're going to 1971 via Connecticut. John Hancock's own Let's Scare Jessica to Death. Full disclosure, I had never seen this movie, and it was my first time watching it for this episode, and I fucking loved this movie, Mr. Hill.
I might as well have not seen this. I'd seen it so long ago. You know, like I was like a little kid when this came on, and I probably saw it like on like Channel 9 or Chiller Theater or something like that. You know.
Yeah. Apparently it was on that a bunch. Like it was on, the syndicated channels, as some of our Northeast listeners would know, your 5, 9s, and 11s back in the day. Um, but I guess I never actually saw this. There were a bunch of other movies from that era that I did see in syndication, but not this one. I probably would have been fucking scared shitless of this one and turned it off when I was 10. So 10 or 11 when that shit was going down. So happy to see it now at 50.
And also shout out to Mike from Pennsylvania for reminding us to do this. He recommended this movie, and so yeah, that's what happens when you leave a voicemail and you recommend something. We will get around to doing it, talking about it.
Yes. Maybe not every single time, but quite a bit of the time. But yeah, Let's Scare Jessica to Death, directed by John Hancock, not the John Hancock of the Declaration of Independence, Michael. He was not around in 1971, so we're going to get that out there right now. Different John Hancock. Would we like to run down the cast?
Of course. We have Zora Lambert as Jessica.
Mm-hmm.
Barton Heyman as Duncan. That's her boyfriend. Or is it husband? I think it's boyfriend, right?
Let's see. Husband. Yeah.
Okay. Kevin O'Connor as Woody, their hippie friend.
Mm-hmm.
Mary Claire Costello as Emily. Gretchen Corbett as the girl. And Alan Manson as Sam Dorker.
Mm-hmm.
In 1971, Manson was probably a pretty interesting last name to have.
Yes. Oh my God. I mean, it's funny, like that incident alone has its stamp on so many movies, especially horror movies of the day, as we've mentioned before. Not so much this movie though. Not so much this movie.
No.
Not really. No real post Mansonisms here. However, what is here though that could be tied to the Mansonism is the death of the hippie era and the depth of the free love era and the fallout of, say, the post-hippie Vietnam kind of things are real bleak kind of vibe, right? And also this movie is a part of our long series of films of the American Nightmare, Mr. Hill.
Yeah, absolutely. This shares a lot of common ground with some films that we've talked about recently and have given very favorable opinions about.
Yes, this is 1971. It is post Dawn of the Dead, a part of that whole, wonderful group of people making horror movies independently in America. And that's, Let's Scare Jessica to Death is kind of a part of that, although it was picked up by Paramount for distribution. How about that?
Also notable is that Hancock inherited this script from Lee Kaltheim, who initially visualized this film as like a hippie satire, sort of a comedy. Mm-hmm. The script was obviously reworked by Hancock and had this created an atmospheric, very effective horror film.
Apparently Hancock was inspired by the Henry James novella Turn of the Screw and Robert Wise's film The Haunting. This movie, okay, it's an interesting take on vampirism, folks. And just so you know, we're going to spoil this 1971 movie. So if you haven't seen it, maybe you're going to watch the movie and listen to the podcast. But the really old movies do get spoiled on our show. So yeah, a little bit of Turn of the Screw, a little bit of Haunting. So I could actually see this movie, although it's got the vampire vibe, with an also like ghost film vibe. No?
I would say it's sort of halfway between a ghost and vampire, film.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And maybe like literary nod to M.R. James, the excellent ghost story writer from England. You know, I could see this has like an M.R. James kind of vibe to it as well.
Yeah, and apparently down the line, film scholars have compared this movie to Sheridan Le Fawn's famous vampire novel, Carmilla from 1871. Now, a shit ton of movies were loosely based or based on Carmilla. I need to do myself a favor and finally read that. Have you read that?
Yes, I have. I think that the only reason why they really reference that is that there's like a female on female like connection.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it,
Mhm.
which is like, yeah, it's cool, but I don't think it really, for me personally, it doesn't really connect with that. But you know, whatever. It's
And
all good.
honestly, yeah, it's the quote unquote lesbian vampire trope is barely in this movie. Wouldn't you agree? It's kind of like it's very barely there for me. I don't think I wouldn't say
It's
right.
a stretch really to say
It's a
that
stretch.
there's
Right.
any kind of there's like a female playfulness that was mildly titillating in the film. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
In kind of like a voyeuristic sort of way.
Exactly. Um, okay. Rough plot of the film. Jessica, the movie is called Let's Scare Jessica to Death, played by Zora Lampert, has been recently released from a mental institution into the care of her husband, Duncan, who has given up his job as the string bassist for Philharmonic and purchased a rundown farmhouse outside of the city. What's interesting is that this film was shot all over different parts of Connecticut, but if you watch the movie, they never say where they are, right?
No, they don't actually. And fun fact for you guys out there, our very own Jeff Kashid is a native of the state of Connecticut. I thought that might
That's
be
right.
interesting.
Yes. Love to hear his take on this film. I'm going to say he's probably seen this one, but I don't know for sure if he's seen this one. So, they hightail it to the country, so to speak, with their buddy, Woody, played by actor Kevin O'Connor. And they get to this, big, beautiful old house. And once they're inside, they find that they are not alone. There's a mysterious drifter there, Emily, pretty redheaded actress, played by Marie Claire Costello. But I will say, Mike, right out of the gate, she's got crazy eyes. Would you agree? She's got the crazy, icy eyes.
100%. Yeah, definitely. And also the thing we have to note here is that they've already set Jessica up to be the unreliable narrator because of her, emotional issues that she has, and the fact that she has a past of possibly seeing things that aren't there. So
Yeah.
they set this doubt on things that are actually happening if she's perceiving them. So it's it's that literary trope of the unreliable narrator that gets introduced here.
And before we got rolling tonight, listeners, Mike and I were talking about how well this movie pairs with Messiah of Evil, which it absolutely does. It would make a very cool double feature anywhere. Both of these movies start off with that unreliable narration, right? It's like that she's kind of talking to the viewer, to the screen about things, and she's kind of like, I don't know if it's death obsessed. It's almost like, I believe she was once very afraid of death, and now she was in like a graveyard, Jessica, and she's kind of trying to turn a corner with death, right?
Yeah, she's fascinated by it. There's this obsession with death, and she's making these like really cool lead etchings. I forgot what they're called exactly, but where you take the impression and you run lead like a pencil
Of
with
a
a piece of paper.
gravestone, right. Yeah, over like this like piece of like parchment or whatever the hell it is, and she's hanging them up in the house, and but as you said, Mike, unreliable narrator, because she's definitely, like, you could tell she's obviously probably better than what she was before the movie started.
Yeah.
But I don't think she's 100%.
No. And but what they do a good job of is they show the support that Duncan gives her as her husband, you know.
Mm.
He's like, he's
Yeah,
protective of her, and he's very understanding and supportive of her, emotional issues that she has. Because when they first see Emily, she's like, wasn't sure if she was there or not, and Duncan is like, I saw that too. Like,
right.
You're not crazy. I saw the same thing that you saw, so it's okay,
And although it's 1971, by the way, we didn't mention the release date. Released August 27th, 1971, and it's got a running time of 89 minutes. It had a budget of $250,000, and it does not mock, even though it's 1971 and things were rather insensitive back then. It does not mock mental illness, Mike. Would you agree?
No, it shows a very supportive, take on it. No one's like calling her crazy.
Right.
Like I said, Duncan is very understanding. Woody is very understanding and supportive. Everyone's trying to, help her heal and get on the right path with everything.
Right. They want to see her well, and she's getting better, and they're all just trying to start a new fucking life,
Yeah.
And they see that they have this squatter living in the house, and instead of kicking her out, they invite her to stay the night for dinner. Right, Mike?
Because they see that there might be a burgeoning romance between Woody and
and
yeah, Emily.
They want to hook up Woody. Exactly.
Woody, who has a fantastically aggressive mustache.
Far more aggressive than mine, listeners, as my mustache kind of comes in and out. I shave it, I grow it back. It's way more aggressive than mine has ever been, in my opinion. So yeah, and of course, she busts out a guitar and starts singing, and you can kind of tell right away that Emily's a little wacky too. If you want to say, poor Jessica is the quote unquote crazy one. If you ask me, Emily is already showing signs that she's a bit off. No.
Yeah, we got a couple of wild women here. Like
yes.
Definitely unique. And so yeah, you get this sort of vibration of what's going on. Also, it's let's note that these guys drive around in a hearse too, and they're long
they drive around in a hearse that says love on the side. It's like, again, I read somewhere about how this movie was about almost like the death of the hippie love generation in a way. Like, there's actually quite a few 70s horror movies that you could equate that, phrase to, but this one is, to me, is kind of yet another one, because I think the optimism of the 60s, although the 60s was very turbulent, by the end of the 60s, when Vietnam is in full swing and the Manson murders and all the issues at the colleges and civil rights, and it's like by the time you've landed on 71, that optimism is like gone. Mike?
Yeah, no, it's darker. It's a darker
right.
decade for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And as they roll through town, there's all these like old timer, like they make a point out of these guys being vets too. I don't know if you noticed that or not. And they're like, calling them hippies and all sorts of undesirable names.
A bunch of times. Yeah, no, exactly. So, of course, after they have dinner with her and she spends the one night, they see how attracted Woody is to Emily. So they just basically invite her to stay indefinitely, which was probably not the best idea in hindsight. Unfortunately, right around this time, Jessica starts hearing voices again, and she keeps seeing this mysterious blonde young girl, known as, on the cast as the girl or the woman, played by actress Gretchen Corbett, in the distance, that kind of, appears and reappears. And while she's swimming, she's grabbed by something under the water. And, unfortunately, Duncan and Moody fear that she's kind of relapsing, right?
See, now this is the interesting part of the movie is that once again, being the unreliable narrator, some of these things I believe happened, and some I do believe were a figment of her imagination, or her cognitive dissonance that she's having.
Okay, what do you like? So you think probably nothing grabbed her under the water?
No, but I think that maybe the blonde girl is not necessarily real, and maybe something that she conjured up in her mind.
Hmm.
And then there's also some things that happen in the in the voiceover where she even describes that she feels like certain things are not there and that she's questioning stuff and that kind of thing.
See, now I thought the blonde girl might not have been there either until a scene a little later where all three of them, Woody and Emily, and the husband Duncan, they all see her together. Unless that also was not real, you think?
Well, that's I kind of forgot about that scene, I guess. So, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
All right, so yeah, okay, I stand
where they're
corrected.
trying
then.
to talk to her, and they're like, they've determined that she's deaf, basically.
Right.
But she seems very disturbed by Emily. I almost feel like she ties to the house. Okay, this isn't really explained with the girl. Okay, this is my little perhaps take that she's tied to the house, and she is basically there to warn Jessica, perhaps, about Emily and about all the fucked up shit that is going to transpire, or not, because now it's like, yeah, like you don't know if it is in fact real or not. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I
But
guess
they
the
do want to
point
meet her.
the point I was trying to make though is there was a point where I wasn't even sure if Jessica was real, like that she was like a ghost at some point.
Mm.
And the blonde, was she a physical, tangible form or was she a ghost? Because there's a lot of like otherworldly stuff going on around the house.
Right. Now there's a scene where they go, Duncan and Jessica, they go to an antique shop, right? And they meet this guy and they try to sell the guy a bunch of stuff. And there's a portrait that they try to sell him, and it's of the family that used to live in the house. And sure enough, one of the women in the portrait, of course, is pretty much Emily, right? Or that,
Yeah.
they're saying it just looks like her or whatever, but clearly it's her. And the guy from the antique shop, uh, Sam Dorker, played by Alan Manson, no relation, tells them the story of how there was the woman in the photo, whose name was Abigail, how King Diamond, drowned in 1880, just before her wedding day. So she was wearing a wedding dress when she drowned, and the legends that she's still alive, roaming the island as a vampire, which is the first time we're even hearing the word vampire in the movie, right?
Yeah, and once again, this is not. I guess maybe this is where there's a little bit of similarity with Camilla, the novel, because
right.
it's not your Bram Stoker version of vampires or your Eastern European style vampire. It's like a different sort of take on it, because she's out during the day and there's
Emily,
all that.
right? She's
Yeah.
very different. She does not sleep in a coffin. She's out during the day. She, I would say, is like you said, like a ghost to vampire hybrid.
Yeah, because it's not like she was bitten or there's a curse. She just, she drowned and now she's a vampire.
Yeah. So after they leave, like the antique shop, Jessica was like totally fascinated by that story, and she's making a gravestone rubbing again out, by some graves. On Abigail Bishop's grave, of course, she finds the grave where she was supposed to be, and she notices again this blonde woman, the young girl, and she leads Jessica to a cliff, and at the bottom of the cliff lies that antique guy Dorker's dead, bloody body. By the time Jessica runs to find her husband Duncan, that body is gone. However, this is the scene I'm talking about. Jessica and Duncan together spot the woman, the girl with no name on the cliff. And when they catch up with her, they start questioning her, but she remains silent and doesn't speak. But when she sees that Emily is approaching, she runs away. That's why I was trying to perhaps wrap my head around the fact that she's some kind of ethereal warning about Emily, who, like Emily, can take the shape of a normal person. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, take the shape of like a mortal? Am I getting too...
Yeah, no, that's kind of what I was thinking myself too, when I was like, baby, her being like not of the physical realm,
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for Woody, Emily has set her sights on Duncan, Jessica's husband, right?
Of course.
And while they're in bed one night, Duncan tells Jessica that, maybe you should go back to New York and resume your psychiatric treatments. And she does not take that well. And she, has him sleep on the couch, where, of course, Emily and him wind up, copulating. And I feel really bad for Jessica in that moment, don't you?
Yeah, because, there's this, I mean, this is the thing, as we're learning that the house that they're in is Emily's house. You know what I mean? So you're thinking originally there's this like guest, this wayward young girl that they've allowed to stay there, and that she's abusing her hospitality and that sort of stuff, and interloping in this relationship and everything. But they're in the realm of Emily at this point, AKA Abigail.
Right, exactly. Then there's a scene where Jessica is in the attic and she's staring at that photo that they wound up keeping instead of selling to the antiques guy. And she's pretty much figured out, it is Emily, because all of a sudden she's hearing Emily's voice in her head. And then Emily emerges trying to bite Jessica's neck in the attic. And Jessica flees and locks herself in a room for a while. And then eventually breaks free and, hitchhikes a ride into town, right?
And this is where we start noticing the weirdness of the town people.
Yeah.
This is where they all have these like lacerations on their neck as if they've been bitten by somebody.
Oh, first of all, they're also all men.
They're all men and relatively old in comparison.
Yes. No other women, and they're all older men with wounds and bandages and stuff, how I wrapped my head around that was she's been feeding off those same people for ages.
Yeah, exactly.
And, she sees Duncan, and, well, she doesn't see Duncan in town. She sees his car, and then she encounters the Sam Dorker antique guy, but sure enough, he's kind of like a weird kind of, zombie, kind of like a vampire victim with like a thing on his neck, and he's not the same guy he once was.
Yeah, this is the part that reminded me a little bit of Messiah of Evil.
Yeah. Oh my God. Totally. She kind of runs away from the townspeople, and she's found by Duncan, her husband, who takes her home and makes her lie down. And sadly, she notices there's cuts on Duncan's neck, her husband, just like the townspeople. And then out of nowhere, Emily enters the room brandishing a knife with all the townspeople behind her. Jessica manages to flee all these people, knocking over Duncan's base case, which contains the corpse of the mute blonde young girl. Okay, question. That looked pretty real. Do you think that was real?
It's hard to say, man. I mean, I I still have no idea, like what the blonde woman was. She was like, was she like Emily? Like, was she like an undead victim, or was she a modern woman, or what? You know what I mean?
Right.
But I mean, she was killed. But I don't know. It's hard to say what her actual, origin is.
I'm starting to almost think that she was real and that she wasn't a ethereal creature or anything like that, that she was literally one of the only women left in the town. And she was basically trying to warn them, but she couldn't talk. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I thought
Gotcha.
that's kind of what I've kind of landed on
Now,
now. And then
what
they
do you think
finally got her.
happened? Like, what happened? Why is it an all male town? Like, why?
Mm,
I'm trying to understand that too. It's like that's literally the only other woman in the movie
yeah.
besides
And
Emily and Jessica. That is.
it is true. That is true. There's no other women in the town. Jessica's running out of the house. She comes across Woody with his throat slashed. So now he is dead as well. Um, this ending has Friday the 13th part one vibes, Mike Hill. The end with Jason with the boat,
Sure.
very possibly inspired Sean Cunningham. I'm sure he probably might have seen this movie, 8 years, 9 years prior. It's possible. Jessica makes it onto a boat, a rowboat, and paddles out to the lake. And a hand reaches out of the water, and she starts stabbing the person whose hand, whom the hand belongs to several times with the pole hook from the boat. And unfortunately, we learn that she is, killing Duncan, her husband,
Yeah.
which, okay, now here's the thing with that. This makes me now think that Jessica, like, you may lean to the fact that Duncan might not have even had those wounds on his neck at the time, and that he was swimming out to help his estranged crazy wife who ran to the boat, and she ended up killing her husband. And then as she looks forward, she sees Emily and all the townsmen, on the dock watching her, and the movie ends. Now, do you think Duncan was trying to help his estranged wife, or do you think Duncan was trying to get to his wife to kill his wife?
I'm going to stick with the idea that this was pretty much like a straight narrative. And remember, there's no other women that are alive besides Emily.
Mhm.
So
Right.
maybe that's why Jessica had to go,
Mm.
because like the blonde, if we're going to say that blonde lady was an actual human, modern lady, she got killed, right?
Right.
And the town is just a town of vampiric slaves to Emily, and Jessica had to go.
She had to go. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I'm sure there's a lot. I mean, I know that people also think of this as just like a psychological thing that's going on, but I feel like there's a lot of evidence to say that this is actually a vampire movie.
yeah, I mean, I think Emily was a vampire. The townspeople, I mean, this is one train of thought. Uh, Emily was a vampire. The townspeople were victims, and they were trying to kill Jessica because, they ended up at the wrong house. You know what I'm saying? And Emily's done this before, in my opinion. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? That's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at this movie is that Emily was mentally ill, and a lot of this may not have happened at all. And like some of it might have happened, but not, like, you know what I'm saying? Like some instances might have been very legit, but others maybe less so. Although I do like our kind of straight line horror movie vibe of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
maybe after I watch this 2 or 3 more times, I'll start seeing it the other way. But right now, I see it as like a straight narrative.
yeah. But like Messiah of Evil, if you ask 5 people about this movie and that movie, you might get 5 different takes, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's great. That's awesome. I love that it's debatable.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what made this movie such a fucking awesome movie. Um, as I was saying about how this movie touches on the decline of the 60s counterculture, the hearse that Duncan and Jessica drive has the word love spray painted on it, and it has been noted as a blatant reference to the death of hippie values.
Oh, okay.
Critic and biographer Michael Doyle describes the film as a haunting elegy for the failures of the hippie movement. Doyle elaborates that the film isolates and illuminates the death and corruption of counterculture values of the era and the festering paranoia that occurred through the 70s with Watergate, assassination of Harvey Milk and George Moscone, Jonestown Massacre, Vietnam, etc., etc. I like that, don't you?
Yeah, no, that's what a lot of these horror films from this era were allegories for other things, and they were expressing ideas like that because it was a very cynical point in history in America.
Yeah, this movie, like we said, shot in Connecticut for 26 days with a budget of $250K. It's actually pretty good for 1971.
Yeah.
It was shot independently, but was again picked up by Paramount, and and distributed by Paramount, which is nice. The name of the company that initially was making the movie was called the Jessica Company, and then they sold it in early '71 to Paramount. Frank Yablans, a name a lot of film nerds would know, was the executive at Paramount at the time. He came up with the title as Hancock's original working title. Once they moved away from the comedy thing, was just Jessica. How about that?
Huh. I like Let's Scare Jessica to Death, actually.
That's
a good title.
It's a great title. And you know what's fucking weird, right? It's a very giallo title. This is not a giallo film, folks. It is not a giallo film at all. But it's actually a very 1971 European sounding title, isn't it?
Very much so. Very, very much so.
Yeah. And that may or may not have inspired Yablans to come up with that name. Who knows, right?
Yeah, it could be.
They gave out plastic vampire fangs to certain patrons in different theaters as a promotion of the film. And a horse-drawn hearse and coffins were parked in front of Manhattan's Criterion Theater during the opening week of the film. How about that?
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. At the Criterion alone, it made $47,651. For a budget of $250K, that's pretty good.
Yeah, you can't beat that, man. That's awesome.
Oh, that's nice. But the legacy of the film has lived on. It's been written about quite a bit in different horror movies. In 2006, the Chicago Film Critics Association proclaimed this movie as the 87th scariest film ever made.
The 87th scariest film.
Yes, I think they have like 200, something like that, or 100. Yeah.
Okay.
Which is, hey, it's nice to be on a list like that. It's been mentioned in Time Out magazine, Sci-Fi Channel. Apparently, David Lynch was a fan of this movie, Michael.
That makes sense to me.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, listeners, it has, like Messiah of Evil, a little bit of a dreamy quality too. No.
Yeah, because there are moments where you're not sure what's actually real and what's not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, totally. To no surprise, out of our Necromaniacs score of 1 to 5, I actually give Jessica a 5 out of 5.
I also give this a 5 out of 5, Mike. I love this movie. I hadn't seen this in my whole life has gone by since I've seen this, really. Yeah. And I'm going to order the Blu-ray. And my Messiah Evil comes out next month, we're still in August right now, so in October, and I'm gonna watch both of these as some kind of 30 Days of Halloween thing.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Not a bad idea. I'm about to check the release date on the Messiah of Evil Blue. Can't seem to find that goddamn thing, but yeah, it's dropping very soon. It's in this very nice deluxe edition. But yeah, listeners, if you like Messiah of Evil and you have not seen Let's Scare Jessica to Death, huge recommend, as they say, to see this one. If you haven't seen it in a long time, maybe watch it again. Maybe there's some things you missed. I have a funny feeling on another viewing of this, I'll probably find some little things here and there that I might not have been aware of, or different takes, you know. Yeah, Screen Factory put out this Blu-ray in January of 2020. The DVD came out from Paramount back in 2006. So, yeah, I believe both have some extras, but I think the Screen Factory one is a little bit heavier on the extras. Yeah, Let's Scare Jessica to Death. Another fucking banger 70s horror film.
That's awesome. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week. Take care.
We'll see you next time, Maniacs. Take care.